And now, on to what you've been playing. This week, I've been playing a little game called Dying Light 2. And with me to talk about it is my best worst enemy, Mr. Luke Lore, aka the Insipid Ghost from the Xbox Expansion Pass. How are you, sir?
I'm doing so well. I'm so glad to join you, by the way. After we could talk Activision, we could talk Bungie. Nope, we're here to talk Dying Light Dose.
This is
I'm
the
excited.
first big game of the year, man.
It is. It
Soak it
is.
in.
It is. After a month of news, now we have games, and that's dope.
I know. So first and foremost, our codes have been provided by the publisher Techland. So just bear in mind with that if you want to take our opinions with a grain of salt. But what we're going to do is try our best to have a spoiler-free discussion of the game, what we've played. I've played 35 hours of it, beaten the game, just got to the end game portion. And so we're going to talk about my experiences. I know we're going to shed a little bit of light on yours, Luke. And with that said, we're going to start with a brief synopsis of this game,
Mhm.
taking the role of Aiden Caldwell, an infected survivor looking for the cure in the city where the player encounters and has the choice to aid various factions that are based within the affected or are affected your outcome and gameplay. The game is set 15 years after the events of Dying Light, where the Haran virus has spread across the world and have evolved and plunged this civilization back into the modern Dark Ages. That comes from the Dying Light 2 wiki. That is a very, very brief overview of what this game is. It's a little bit deeper than that.
Mhm.
Aiden is on a personal mission where he goes into the last city to get some answers revolving some of his backstory and the people affected there. That's his whole purpose. And he walks into an inner conflict between two factions, some sneaky characters at play, and a whole lot bigger world implications of this story. So, right off the bat, Luke, you have any questions for me when it comes to the story of this game?
Yeah, plenty, man. Given that it is set 15 years after the events of the original Dying Light, and that game was pretty much a cult classic, very popular amongst a niche group of gamers and kind of rose in popularity. Uh, Joe, I haven't played that game. I own it. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
Would I have need to have played it to jump into Dying Light 2?
Perfect. I've played half of Dying Light 1
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was a stellar game. I never know why I like kind of dropped off,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't need to know what's going on with this world or have played the first Dying Light to get into Dying Light 2. So
Okay.
if you're a newcomer, don't worry about the lore. It'll fill you in with the first 5 minutes.
Fills me in the first 5 minutes, and I'll get to know Aiden. Did you identify with Aiden at all? Because being that I haven't a reason to know him, I'm just curious about like, is my hero a hero, an anti-hero? Tell me a little bit about Aiden.
So the cool thing about the story is you get to make the choices of Aiden. So you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of filling out the character of maybe what would he do or what would you do in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the cool thing about the story, what they try to do, and I think it's scaled a little bit down from the original introduction, is the world changes by the choices you make in the game. So there's two factions.
Mm-hmm.
There are peacekeepers, and then there are the civilian faction, which I forget that it's coming. I forget the name of them because, to be honest, both sides are kind of forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
But there's two factions at play. One is the peacekeepers, where they're all about order, and then you have the civilian faction that are all about just kind of not more like living within their means,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just adapting to the world itself. And the choices you make influence the world, where if you choose the peacekeepers, you're going to be having more traps in the world where you could lure infected too. Where if
Mm-hmm.
you choose the civilian population, the bizarre folk, you're going to get more parkouring options in the game to help you traverse through the world. So there are choices to fill Aiden out as a character that go beyond just the character that influence the world itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned a lot of the parkour options, and we know that this story is taking place in a place called the City, which is kind of one of what the game describes as the last strongholds against the virus in this modern Dark Ages
Yeah.
version of a world. In some games like this, where they do tout the open world, they talk about the world itself being a character. Do you
Yeah.
feel like it grows with you through the course of the story, given that your choices impact it?
Yes. There are two big areas of this game. Um, and I have to say, the first area where it kind of feels a little lower to the ground is it kind of has like, I don't know, what I would picture a London suburb to kind of feel like.
Hmm.
Whereas the second area of this game has all these skyscrapers that you get to kind of parkour around or even paraglide down
Hmm.
on. So, like, the maps themselves are incredibly vertical.
Hmm.
Also, I do want to mention the other faction's called the Survivor faction. I just want to
Okay.
put that out there.
So when we talk about map design, I'm sure we can go back to the open world elements, but did you find it imposing at all? Because it's one of the things that scares me about first person games,
Yeah.
where it's not just a shooter, is that person element can be almost intoxicating or mess you up a little bit.
Yeah.
Any vibes there?
No, honestly, the strongest thing about this game is its open world. It
Hmm.
is the traversal. Parkouring is just so much fun. And what I really dug about this game is the deeper you get into the story, the deeper the parkour mechanics become. So,
Hmm.
yeah, like in the beginning, it's just jumping through stuff, but then you get to these, paragliding options where you can traverse the environment that way, where it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm fast traveling to my destination. You're still kind of actually finding out where you can land to parkour onto an object or
Hmm.
run up against the wall or even like grapple hooking onto things where you're swinging around like Spider-Man. Like they give you so many options to parkour, to
Hmm.
travel that constantly keep you engaged. And honestly, it's the best thing. It feels so good.
Okay, so I have to ask two dreaded questions then.
Okay.
Given that you're using a paraglider and that you're using a grappling hook, how
Yeah.
does it compare to other games with paragliders like Breath of the Wild or grappling hooks where you grapple and tackle with like in Halo Infinite or
Grapple and
Titanfall
tackle.
2, grapple and tackle?
Uh,
How does it compare to those ones?
Yeah, no, nothing like Breath of the Wild here. What I will say
What?
is,
Game of the year or something or another?
I know. What I will say is, it's not like a cheat. Again, like I have to go back to this.
Hmm.
Doesn't feel like I'm missing anything by using the paraglider, or like taking away from the world. You're using
Hmm.
it. It's still draining your stamina meter,
Hmm.
so you can't use it indefinitely. But it is stunning when you're literally falling from the highest peak
Yeah.
and just gliding around. It's awesome. There's all vents to keep you elevated to maintain your stamina as well. So it's really fun. And when it comes to the grappling hook, it for me took a little bit of getting used to, but once you
Hmm.
got used to it, it's really fun because it also blends so well with the other parkour mechanics. Again, it's constantly keeping you engaged.
Okay, so this gets me excited because I was intimidated by that fact and nervous to try it. I will get to the VO cast and a bit of the story in just a moment, but since we're on the open world,
Yeah.
what is it that you're doing in there, and did you enjoy it? Because we talked a lot about like critical elements, but you were having fun as you flew around and checked all this stuff out.
Yeah, so there's a lot to the open world and there's a lot of stuff going on. So if you get a little anxiety ridden with all the pings on the map, this will get your anxiety a little bit up. I
Yes, I'm told
tried
it's
to,
500 hours worth of pings to do.
yeah, kind of like 500 hours worth of pings.
Okay.
Um, so you're clearing camps, you're clearing outposts during the day. The cool thing, the infected, right? Because this is a zombie game after all,
Hmm.
they roam around, some of them during the day, but a lot of them are in the buildings, kind of like I Am Legend. So
Okay.
yeah, so you upgrade yourself. There's little like syringes that you upgrade yourself with, and they're usually in these dens or like materials that will help craft uh, upgrades or mods to your weapons
Hmm.
in these dens that you have to break into. So you could go in during the day, but you're gonna probably die.
Hmm.
Well, they'll kind of come out at night and it'll give you a better opportunity to sneak in those dens and find the
Mm.
materials you need, which is a lot of fun.
Okay.
Um, there's a lot of climbing windmills and, of course, radio towers. Think of like an Ubisoft game. Each one of these things are different as well. So, like, each windmill feels different, each radio tower is different. Every area in this open world does not feel like a carbon copy. It's
Okay.
impressive the level of detail that went into each area, and that team needs a round of applause because they killed it, man. It was awesome. And yeah, a lot of different parkouring activities, saving survivors, or chasing down zombies, or chasing down thieves. So there's always something in your purview to do while you're beelining through the story that get you distracted.
Did you find yourself getting distracted out of enjoyment, or did you want to crit path through?
No, I didn't want to path this game, man, but it was getting close to embargo. The
Hmm.
first day, I literally, it took me like 35 hours to beat, but like at least 6 to 8 of those hours was me getting lost in this world because I
Cool.
found the world itself far more intriguing than the story.
When the team announced that it was 500 hours, there was a lot of backlash, and they were like, "No, you can crit path it in 20." Uh, you did it in 35. Was that ideal, or were you pushing embargo? Would you have spent more time in the story?
Yeah, I would have spent a little bit more time with the story for sure. I think
Okay,
this would have been a 40-hour experience for me, easy.
gotcha. Well, that's
Um,
good to hear.
yeah, but at the same exact time, I'm not like the biggest fan of the story.
All right, so let's talk about that. It
Yeah.
stars Miss Ahsoka. Rosario Dawson features in
Yes.
this story.
Yes.
Uh, I have to know about her role because, given that I only know Aiden from like press releases and hadn't played the first one,
Yeah.
and that we have these factions in this last city and they're warring over materials and such. Um, Tell me a bit about kind of the voice acting and how they deliver this story. Does it ever cut out to third person? Is it always first person? Give me what you got.
Always first person.
Okay.
You are in the shoes of Aiden. He is the best piece of acting in this game,
Hmm.
bar none. The story is serviceable. It is like a, like Day of the Dead type of horror flick, if you could call it that.
Hmm.
But I feel like it gets weighed down by maybe its localization because some of the lines that these people are saying don't really make much sense. And they use really weird language to describe things, or like, I don't know, like a blind nut finds a squirrel twice a day type of lines, like
We know a
really
fool that
weird
says that.
folksy stuff. I know who says that.
Yeah,
Weirdos
yeah.
do. So like,
Is
yeah,
it is it meant to when they're doing that, are they writing that off as like, "Oh, that's because this is the language that's changed with the world." Like, will lore nuts care about it, or is this like, "No, this is just awkward."
no, it's just awkward.
Okay.
I feel like some of the script is written really odd.
Mhm.
I feel like some of the dialogue isn't the best.
Mhm.
And I feel like some actors like Rosario Dawson try to sell it really well,
Mhm.
and some of them really just phone it in. So like the main bad guy, I beat this game. I can't remember his name. He is that
Oh, okay.
forgettable of a character,
Mhm.
of a villain, because he's just one note and he just talks like this.
Gotcha.
And
Okay. Is
you're
it
gonna
distracting?
find it's distracting because I'm now on Twitter instead of engage with this. He's not menacing. They're not menacing.
Mhm.
Um, so there are some great voice actors in here. It's just a lot of a mixed bag. And I feel
Right.
like that's the thing that's taking me out of the experience. Rosario's Dawson's character, um, all I can say is she's intriguing because she has a hit list, and that's all I can say. So you're like,
Gotcha.
why is she here as well? What's
Mhm.
her character all about? Um, Even her, she has weird lines and moments that I can't really pinpoint a point in the dialogue that kind of felt cringy, but it just didn't come off natural. And maybe that's the effect of COVID. You don't have them in the room with you, but
Sure.
the other thing on top of that is the face capture just isn't there. So sometimes you're talking to someone and someone
Mhm.
walks through the character, like
Mhm.
literally walks through them. Sometimes like a lot of
Weird.
like hands going through jackets and stuff like that. Um, it's this game's a little bit rough around the edges. Think of it like a Bethesda game. That
Mhm.
type of uh, jank that doesn't take away from the overall experience, but does chink the armor a little bit there.
Well, Techland's not exactly known for super polish. I mean, the
Yeah.
first Dying Light had its own issues. I want it. Was it Techland that made Dead Island? No, I'm just panicking.
Yes, they were the original devs of that. And for fans of that series, you're gonna there's some fan service for sure.
Okay, well,
Be
that's
on the
good to hear
lookout for
then.
some Easter eggs. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so Techland, probably I would say in my mind they're among the top tier of AA developers,
Mm.
and I feel like this game is teasing into AAA territory. Is that a sentiment you would agree with?
Yeah, actually, that feels really good. I think that's a great analogy. This is, self-published and self-developed by them.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's why, like, as much as like there are some weird elements and it's not a fully polished experience for sure, like we are supposed to expect from AAA,
Hmm.
there is a lot here that kind of lends itself to, wow, if you know, I saw with the budget you had, you hit exactly what you needed to do and a little bit more some. So
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely.
Before we close out, I do want to talk a little bit about combat and how the
Yeah.
game looks combat wise. When I've seen, when you look at trailers, you're seeing first person combat, which can be strange if you're doing a lot of traversal stuff, but
Yes.
you're engaging with your fists, fisticuffs. Parkour seems to be involved in combat, and I'm seeing weapons, including guns, but it's not a shooter,
Yeah.
right?
There's a few range weapons in this game, which kind of bummed me out that I don't feel like they get enough love in this
Mm-hmm.
game. There's a bow and arrow in this game, and I love like I'm an archer.
Yeah,
That's
I'm excited when you say that.
yeah, but I don't know. Maybe just because the loot I've gotten hasn't been great, but the bow and arrow kind of feels really nerfed. They really want you to go in there with your
Mm,
melee weapons. And the one thing that you may or may not dig is there is weapon durability. Your weapons
mhm.
will break. Now you can
Just
upgrade that.
like,
No,
just
don't say it.
like
I know you're gonna say it.
the Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, sure. So you can upgrade it over time so they get immensely stronger and you can mod
Mhm.
them as well. So like you could literally put like a lighter at the end of it and it's your fire mod, or you could have like shock on it or toxic on it.
Dope. Okay.
Um yeah, so there's a lot of like crafting that again you create mods for your characters or for your character and for its weapons. The combat itself does remind me yet again, this is like Skyrim with
Mhm.
zombies.
Gotcha.
It is very much like R1 or sorry, R2, hold R2 for your heavy attack type of stuff, block
Mhm.
with your L1. I do have some problems with the melee combat. Maybe I'm not too great at it, but
Mhm.
from a guy that's platinum Sekiro, humble brag, I don't think the enemy tells are that great.
Mhm.
So I'm getting a little messed up in melee combat where I don't think it's necessarily my fault.
Mhm.
At the same exact time, though, melee combat isn't too difficult because it's kind of like, like in Assassin's Creed where there's like 10 guys on you, but only one or two guys actually come and try to strike at you.
Sure.
When it comes to the human enemies, they're a lot like that.
Mhm.
But there's just so much fun you can be had with, like, I have this giant club and I held down R2 and triangle and I just did like a cyclone attack to knock 8 guys off their ass, right?
Dope.
That's really fun. There's a awesome feeling where you chop a zombie's head off and it goes to slow mo and you just see the head roll. Like
Okay, you're selling me. I like slow mo.
yeah, like it's visceral. The melee combat may not be completely polished,
Mhm.
but it is fun enough that when you're in the moment, when you're in combat, it feels really, really fun more than anything. And again, it may not be so intricate or may be kind of surface level deep, but it is a ton of fun when you're in the moment
Mhm.
fighting a whole bunch of zombies. That said, as well, when it comes to zombie variations, and I'm
Mhm.
sorry if I'm going over you a
You're
little bit
good.
here, they do an excellent job, which I didn't feel like they did in the first game. They did an excellent job here of introducing each infected type
Okay.
really, really well. I won't spoil some because some are deep within the game, but like you have your classic screecher, you
Mhm.
have your classic vomiter, or I'm gonna toss projectiles at you.
Kind of your
There's
standard Left for Dead style specials.
yes, and you
Okay.
can they're expected in here. I
Mhm.
think that's a great way of saying it. There's some brutes that are menacing. All of them, though, are fun. They don't feel like they're daunting in any way. They're a lot of fun to fight. The zombies in this game, I like fighting a lot more than the human enemies. And there's an imperative to fight the zombies because you get tokens. I guess you like cutting off an ear and you're showing a merchant, and they'll
Okay.
be like, okay, so here you get to upgrade, your mod, or you get to upgrade your your health that way.
Weird flex for the shopkeepers of
Yeah,
Dying Light.
yeah.
Weird flex for them. But okay, so you mentioned difficulty twice.
Yeah.
And then for trophy room listeners, I want to also ask about the DualSense. The
Oh.
difficulty of the game. You've beaten Sekiro, you've
Mhm.
platinumed it, you're an expert at a lot of these really good timing based games. How's the difficulty? Because not everybody, myself included, can handle the difficulty of some of the games that face us. And then if you could jump in with the DualSense features, like what's special with the DualSense? Anything?
Great. I almost forgot that. Thank you for mentioning it. So yeah, quick. There is an easy mode, normal mode, hard mode.
Hmm.
I played this game on normal. I found
Hmm.
it relatively easy for me, and I know I'm a little bit more skilled than most.
Hmm.
Humble brag.
Humble
Uh,
brag.
when it comes to DualSense, it's there. Weapons, depending on like the mace that you have, the two-handed mace, definitely feels heavier to press down on, which
Hmm.
just gives a nice weighted feel to it.
Hmm.
So the DualSense features are there. It's not as prominent, but it's definitely more than most. The one thing that I before we get out of here,
Hmm.
have to mention, first off, graphically, this game, I played it on performance, looked great, ran at 60, never had a drop frame,
Hmm.
only 2 crashes. I need to stress this. The sound design in this game is incredible.
Okay.
Zombies sound really creepy, and
Okay.
it really does put you in the moment and does freak you out a little bit of like, is this thing across from me? Is this thing right next to me? Like, where is, like,
Hmm.
you
Is
get that
Kyle
feeling.
gonna go through his heebie-jeebies?
Yes, definitely when you're in those dens and
Well,
in certain areas of this game, you're gonna be freaked out. The sound design and world design are like top notch. Techland knocked it out of the park.
nice, nice. Did you have any standout visual moments where you paused, had to screenshot it, that kind of thing?
Yeah, man. Looking high up, down at the world, playing on PlayStation 5. Wow. Beautiful.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Just gorgeous.
So one thing you and I don't enjoy doing is putting a score on games.
Yeah.
And given how crowded February is going to be, and it looks like an incredible year for the next few months of gaming, how must play is this for people in the moment? Can they wait a bit? Is this they're going to lose its luster? Could you check it out in a few months when it goes on sale? Where's the must buy feature aspect of this?
You could buy this full price and you're not going to be disappointed. Now, I
Nice.
also need to mention this does have co-op. I didn't find anybody to co-op with, so I don't know how the multiplayer is, truth be told. But
Hmm.
there is, I believe, 3 or 4 player co-op.
Hmm.
Um,
Two
but
to
yeah,
four is what my
two to
press on
four.
the Xbox side, which I would imagine is the same.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend this. This is a solid game. Like if I had to rate it, it's an 8. Like in
Oh,
my
cool.
heart, I'm like, that's where it would fall. I think this is a very good or great game. There is
Hmm.
some blemishes. I'm not a huge fan of the story, but like the moment to moment gameplay is there. And if you are a fan of Dying Light, I could definitely see this being a must buy right now.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Very exciting to hear that, especially given kind of the resurgence that game had. It had its like super edition that released with everything
Mhm.
bundled in, so you can play the old game for a really reasonable price. Uh, and Techland seems to have put a lot of love into it, and it seems like it's getting a lot of love.
Yeah.
I don't mean about reviews, but I mean just an excitement for the game. Embargo is lifting at the time just after we're recording this. We'll have more hands-on stuff, across different platforms that we see from other outlets. But you're standing comfortable. Feel like it's a
Yeah.
great game.
Yeah.
Definitely worth a buy. And
Absolutely.
if you
Again, a
had to
little
give it,
jank, a little rough around the edges, but man, like what is here is a lot of fun. It surprised me how into it I was in this game.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Excellent. All that sounds great, man. And I got my code a little after you, so I'm just now after we are done getting to really get in dive into it. But it sounds like I'll be in for a good chunk of time to
Yeah.
play for a good bit
This
through
this
February.
this is a Luke Gas game, man.
Nice.
I'm excited for you. So that said, everybody, if you have any more questions down below, go into the comments. That said, Luke, where can they find you, good sir?
Hey, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Joe. I appreciate you. Any listener that enjoyed me asking questions, I love asking questions of developers, voice actors, and people around the gaming industry. You can find me on Twitter at Insipid Ghost, and you can find my content, the Xbox Expansion Pass, on all your podcast services. And Joe, you and I do a show
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, Cast Co-op. We're three podcast hosts cast together. We're joined by our good friend, old man himself, Ains from Season Gaming. So
Mhm.
go check us out at Cast Co-op at seasongaming.com for all that goodness. Luke, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, buddy. Always a pleasure. You suck. Got him. I got
That
him.
that said, please hit like, share, subscribe if you like this video, and please know that we here at the Trophy Room, all things PlayStation, each and every Thursday with me and my best friend Kyle. So if you're into all that stuff, please hit the links down below. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast service of choice, you can find the Trophy Room there. So with all that said, with all that out of the way, everybody, keep your wits about you, keep hunting, and keep playing PlayStation. See you guys.